shining plenty as Aryan Power driven by a length and a half to Colony Queen in second. Then Spanish Archer. Oh, what's going on here? Aryan Power's been eased off. Oh, goodness me. And Colony Queen has won it.
And a big, very warm welcome on this Sabbath to the Bar Stewards Inquiry Sunday Sermon. My name's Lee Keys of systembet.co.uk, and with me today to discuss the weekend's events and the events taking place going forwards is John Lang of John Joe's Blogspot on Facebook, and with me also is Lorne Malvo from Twitter. Chris, good to listen to you today, and John, good to hear from you today.
Thank you.
Yes. Now we've got an action-packed sort of shirt, so I'll get straight on with it. The poor lad that rode yesterday evening at Doncaster, Mark Crehan, was guilty of mistaking the winning purse. He looked at the lollipop a half a furlong out, thought that was it. Thought that's all he had to do. Stood up in the saddle. He just needed to wave to the crowd, really, I think, to make it even funnier. But yeah, it was an absolute comedy of errors. Obviously a mistake, and we've had a few questions regarding the severity of the punishment. Ian Davis and Quick46 from YouTube and Mike Owen have all said, is 28 days enough, or is 28 days right, or what? Where do we stand on? Where do we stand on this? Chris, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think the 28 days is fine. I mean, I just don't buy into the, he's a young lad, leave him alone, everyone makes mistakes. I certainly wouldn't condone the sort of the swivel-eyed loons that threaten to burn his house down and all that sort of crap. But, fundamentally, in any other industry, if you made a cataclysmic error of judgment that caused your customers in this case being punters, to lose money, I think you'd do well to get suspended. I think you'd be looking at a P45 and a walk down the road. So, I think 28 days is proportionate. I think I'm disappointed by the media's immediate sort of responses. Oh, leave him alone. And all the kind of people that jump on board saying, oh, you're only talking through your pocket. Well, yeah, I am. And because I'm talking through my pocket, I've got, a right to say something because I've got skin in the game and a stake in the outcome. All the people that I'm sort of saying, take it easy, etc., who haven't had a bet, well, I'm not interested in their opinion because they're like the kind of bureaucrats that sort of, impose rules on people, but don't have to participate in the outcome. So pocket talkers, for me, have more of a say in that debate than those who don't. So that's my view. I think 28 days is about right.
Fair comment indeed. John, did you manage to see it, first of all?
I did, yeah. Grisly viewing for those that had parted with a few quid as well. I think the ban is probably about right. I mean, again, as Chris said, I don't really buy into this with the press and leave them alone and all this, because these days they get treated an awful lot better than they did as apprentices, if this sort of thing had happened and he was apprenticed to Ryan Price or Sam Hall, he'd probably got a right-hander or a shooting stick across the shops.
Good old days. God bless them.
So, it's a good thing that the game has moved on. One thing I will take issue with is this theory that he should know where the winning post is, because some of these winning posts are absolutely appallingly marked out.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, you have a furlong pole there that's facing down the track, but when you get to the winning post, it's sideways on, so the people in the stands can see it. All they need is a line. They're not bothered about where the actual post is, but the lads coming down the track could actually do with a massive, big red disc facing down the track, bigger than everything else that's facing them. And I don't think this would happen then.
That's a really, really good point. It's like you said, you have to consider, and I know this has gone on since dawn of time, tracks really haven't changed the sort of, the way they do things. What I noticed with Doncaster, and I don't know if other tracks do it, because I don't really look at purse really, but the half furlong pole, I think all the poles are like red and white hooped. Now that to me like kind of in a way, subliminally says winning posts because winning posts are red and white. So why are they painting the half furlong pole red and white hoops? Because each that if basically that red and white will catch your eye. I mean, it's
if you're going to insist on putting hopes around them, why don't you have them hopes that count down like you do on the motorway exit? 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. No. I think you've touched on a good point there. And I mean, Mike Owen, who did message us with a question, he was against the 28 days. He thought it was too tough. I'm sort of in both the use camp. I think it's about right. It's a mistake. I agree. The lad doesn't deserve castigating. I lost plenty of money last night on it. It absolutely destroyed me. But I'm also wise enough to know, I'd like to think I am, that it was nothing to do with cheating. It was nothing to do with, it's none of that rubbish that's some of that rubbish being spouted. It was literally just a genuine terrible error. And if it's a 28-day ban for Crehan, I actually worked out how many rides he's roughly going to get at this time of year. It's about 60 rides a month. And that's going to cost him, so that's 60 rides, riding fees, then plus any percentage of winnings. It's going to definitely cost him 5 figures. Yeah. That's a lot of money for a young chap trying to make his way in the game. So the punishment, I'd say they've got this one bang on. So, Mark Crehan, learn from your mistake, and I'm sure you're a fine jockey. We're not going to castigate you, but do you know why I think as well the castigating gets really bad on social media? Because the presenters don't help the situation. No, exactly. You can imagine the furore last night. So everyone was going berserk after the race that I knew, that had played in the race, and all the TV presenters could do was, it's a miss. Anyone can make these mistakes. It's like they don't get the feeling of the people watching the sport to start.
Because they don't like punters, Lee. That's the problem. It permeates through the whole industry. Punters are thickos. They're sort of low. They're almost a necessary evil. But nobody has got any feel for the gambling aspect of the game at any level in the sport, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, John, what do you? I mean, do you think that contributes then to people then going to Twitter, etc., going berserk because the presenters on the racing channel aren't really looking after their interests? They're just more or less patting the jockey on the back, saying, "Never mind, son. Mistakes happen." Do you think that could be a reason?
Well, I do. I mean, people are probably feeling increasingly disassociated with the sport because of things like that, because there's nobody really banging a drum for punters at any level, as Chris said, and it's not selling the sport in the right way at all. I mean, we'll talk about something later on that illustrates the point perfectly, I think. But, yeah.
Yeah, great question coming from John Nolan later on to finish the show, which I think everyone will enjoy. I mean, summed up there nicely. We'll move on now to the second of our subjects, and it is obviously something that is probably good for John Nolan's question later. This one, but the stewards yesterday. I mean, this is probably the biggest threat to punting in the game at the moment as it stands. And the reason I say this is because once the stewards start losing the plot, which they seem to be currently doing, you're going to get a situation where you've got no confidence. For example, yesterday's stewards' inquiries, there was one reversal at Newbury, which was 1.03. To stand, and then obviously it drifted the longer it went on, but the initial price was about 103, about 33s on to keep the race. That went, and then literally the irony of it was that literally 20 minutes later at the other meeting at Newmarket, we get an absolute, for me, pretty much a very comfortable, easy decision for them to make in terms of chucking the winner out for giving the second an almighty bang about 100 yards from the line, and the margin was ahead, but it was a big bang, and that stood. Chaps, where do we stand on stewards? John, I'll come to you first.
I think we're long past the time for a centralised panel looking at recordings of races from wherever and making decisions, because just finding the nearest retired major who lives adjacent to the track just doesn't seem to be working now, does it?
No. I mean, look, everyone's got an opinion in terms of, in fact, I looked through Twitter and there are some people supporting the decision. So some people actually believe the stewards yesterday made at least one right call out of those two. Personally, I think one was catastrophic and the other one was just a bad call. But either way, they're not consistent, and this is the reason I think we need centralised stewarding, because you need a consistency that everyone knows what's coming. You don't want scenarios where it's like, well, that's definitely gone, and then it doesn't go, or this one will definitely keep it, and then it gets chucked out. You cannot have scenarios like that. And like John says, it's run by basically friends of the establishment, and I'm sure if connections appeal in either case, it'll give you the excuse for the stewarding panel at the jockey club to meet and convene and have an expensive lunch, John.
Absolutely, they're never likely to knock that back, ever.
Yeah, be some swanky private invite restaurant in London, probably, where it's going to be 4 figures, 5 figures.
I think they'll have to try that new Gino place in Harrogate, actually, so they might come up now.
Cracking. Chris, your take on stewarding?
I haven't got much more to add for what John said. I mean, you make the right point. It's retired majors. I think they should sort of dispense with the majors and go higher up the ranks. Let's have retired colonels for a few years, see if they can do a better job than field marshals or brigadiers or whatever. But it is pretty farcical. But, look, it's the same old story. It's a contempt for the punter. It's kind of, they're almost gatekeepers rather than actual stewards or marshallers of the rules of racing. It's all quite friendly. It's very inconsistent, and this sort of thing now seems to be happening on an almost weekly basis. But am I confident the BHA will do anything about it? Absolutely not. You won't see any change that I can see, because, as we said in previous shows, there's nothing wrong as far as they're concerned. Everything's great.
Which is bizarre, because any professional in the game can see the current problems. What also alarms me as well is the lack of media calling them out. I cannot believe. Yeah. I mean, there was absolute bewilderment in the racing TV studio yesterday. I mean, Paul Never was like on the floor with the decision making.
Yeah, that was there really.
Not really, no. But it kind of, there should be someone really calling them out, because the BHA are just literally like they're sleepwalking into oblivion with everything they do, and like you said, they think they're doing nothing wrong, and they really need the only time the BHA listen is when there's it seems to be a campaign, from people outside racing for them to do something, a la the whip, a la probably what's coming up on Panorama, which is later in the show. But as I said, it's time that they really listen to people. They rejected centralised stewarding 3 years ago, just point blank said it wasn't needed, and I think there's more the case than ever for a set of regular stewarding. Do you agree, John? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. You said the more likely to listen to people outside of racing. Maybe they should start recruiting the stewards from PETA. One of the things that I have noticed in recent years as well, there seems to be a great propensity to recruit stipendiary stewards from the ranks of ex-jockeys, which I think is far, far, far too cosy a thing, because they're passing judgment on the mates who they used to work with, and you're never going to have total unbiased opinions there, eh? Mates are going to get favours and things, whether you like it or not, and mates are going to have statements looked on favourably, and you shouldn't be recruiting stipendiary stewards from the ranks of jockeys. But that said, you should also be ignoring the likes of Patrick Hibbert-Foy, whose own fame is a double barrel.
A classic example regarding your point about jockeys, it would be for me Tony Hind at Chelmsford, and he's made a couple of absolute haulics. There was one that was, I think it was 101 to keep the race, and he chucked that one out. And he's done the same again. There's been 2 big odds-on chances to keep the race at Chelmsford, and he's chucked both out. So again, I'm not saying that Betfair Markets a judge and jury, but usually Betfair Markets is professional money, where they think the judgment's going to go. So if you're 101 to keep a race and you chuck it out, you're an absolute. You've got to be a moron. So that's where we stand on the stewards at the moment. John, before we move on to the next subject, I forgot to ask a question from David Greenwood regarding Crehan. What would Stout's reaction be to Crehan's ride last night?
Easiest man in the world to ride for. Wouldn't be a problem.
No, because obviously, like with you having quite a long pass.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he'd understand. I mean, he's not one of the shouting and bawling lads like that.
No, good. Right, we move on to our next subject, which was causing quite big ripples in the racing world stateside, where Monmouth and some tracks in New York are certainly going to be looking to or trying to phase out the whip. And last night, a couple of Grade 1s in the US at Monmouth were no whips. The Haskell, which was a big Grade 1, the winner was actually disqualified after edging markedly left. It forced it was beaten at the time, but it forced the one in behind to clip heels, and obviously the jockey was unseated. And subsequently, the US rules are very strict on interference, and the winner got DQ'd. Now, it's been argued in the States that had the rider had to be able to correct the horse's direction, maybe left-hand drive to keep the horse from veering in, it could have been different. John, views on whipless races?
The view is that it's a ridiculous suggestion.
Yeah.
I mean, irrespective of whether you're allowing them to hit horses around the arse with the whip, you've got to have a whip in your hand for emergency correctional measures. I mean, it can be your last course of action to stop yourself going through the railings.
Well, an example in UK yesterday in a better race was in the Hackwood. If you watch Diligent Harry, that was going to go sideways if it wasn't for a very, very stern smack down the shoulder. I forget who was on, but anyway, it was going to hang markedly left. And how is that? I mean, to have where you're not allowed to correct them, and like I said, I just think a couple smacks for encouragement. I don't see anything cruel at that. I don't agree with beating horses up just because you want that extra last sort of ounce out of them. I think you can ride a perfectly good finish with a couple of stern cracks and a ride out to the line, but banning it completely is just, for me, absolute madness. And I think, how many DQ'd winners are we going to see when this happens? Because all that's going to happen, horses are going to wander left and right, banging into others. In fact, you can probably multiply it by 50. If we go whipless, the amount of disqualifications, and then what have punters got to deal with? The fact that they're getting horses disqualified nearly it's common occurrence, and that's just no confidence for betting on a sport. So therein lies the problem that people of PETA and everybody else wouldn't understand for a sport that obviously relies on betting income for levy. Where do you stand on this, Chris?
Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, I couldn't ride a clothes horse, let alone a race horse. But, the people that do ride race horses for a living all say that to dispense with the whip would have serious safety implications for the riders by way of a corrective measure. So I think it's bonkers, really. But again, the people that object to the whip don't like racing anyway. So, You know, why are they pandering to that lobby in the US? God knows.
Well, I think it's. I mean, as we're going to see, sort of from tomorrow night, I think racing's going to be under increasing pressure across the board to be seen to be doing something. But like that's all the BHA seem to stand for, to be seen to be doing something, and it's a frustrating time. The world's moving in different ways and places compared to when I were a lad. But it's. Some good ways, some not so good ways, and I think this is a classic example of safety in the sport where you like John's pointed out before. You've just mentioned it where you could get horses crashing through the rails because you can't straighten them. You can't. No. It's these are heavy animals, and you need corrective measures to prevent things like this. So whilst a no whip utopia for some might be excellent, certainly from a safety angle, for me it's not.
Yeah, I actually had a discussion with somebody about the whip, and they were totally anti-racing, they were also anti-whip, coincidentally. And they actually pointed out to me, and I was completely lost for words. They said, well, how does SeaWorld manage to train them killer whales then without whips?
Christ. Yeah. Wow.
I couldn't respond. I had no answer.
Wow. That's yeah. What can you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean, I just finished my drink and left.
Yeah. They should bring in the SeaWorld people as consultants to the BHA on $10,000 a day. How about that?
As well, kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
As long as there's an expensive lunch for these chaps involved, that
fresh orca for all, eh? Yeah,
they bring their own herrings, don't they?
Yeah, right. What a world.
Wherever they go, they've got a bucket of herrings on hand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what I will say about the Haskell last night, I like I say, if anyone, it'll be on YouTube if anyone wants to watch it. I did enjoy the finish. To see like 2 jockeys in a driving finish, not. I always think sometimes jockeys can get unbalanced as well. Look at Thrasher Morris, an idiot. But it was quite a good finish. But as I said, would that horse have drifted markedly left like he did? If the jockey was able to correct him, and that inevitably has cost him the race. So yeah, and I don't think punters want to see DQs. When betting, it's an awful thing. It's hard enough to back a winner, never mind get 2 results. So yeah, right, we move on, and another question. Rob Jackson has messaged in. He's a good fan of ours on Twitter, and he says, hi guys, what are your thoughts on French racing? I found myself watching more and more French racing. It seems they have a better grip on things, and there is more respect amongst those within and outside of racing over there. What are your thoughts on French racing, and what can we learn? John?
Well, I think French racing is like racing in other parts of the world as well. I mean, when you watch the coverage from America, Australia, New Zealand even, the coverage is presented in the manner that you would present a mature sport.
Yeah.
Racing is the only sport in this country that advocates presenters acting like absolute idiots. Having 3-legged races for nuns or something in between.
I'm up for that. That's good. Me down for a ticket for that.
Very custard pie fights. Come dressed up like Pirates of the Caribbean. All the rest of it. You'll go racing in France.
That sounds brilliant, to be honest. But carry on. Yeah, I think you've just talked yourself into a marketing job for the BA there. Get this man a lunch.
You'll go racing in France. You're in Paris the morning before the car at Longchamp, and they're sat outside the cafes. They've got Paris turf, a Galois in the gob. They've got a cup of black coffee there. Yeah, and they're serious about it, aren't they? The conversation, whatever.
Until Blogger turns up with smartphone.
Yeah, exactly.
There are other stereotypes are available,
yeah. There's this blithering clown from England turned up.
With the stallion.
And all this crap. But, you get where I'm coming from. You know, the audience are treated as mature fans of the sport, not as people who need to be patronised and, you know, have all the attention span of a crackerjack viewer.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, do you watch much French racing?
I think it's crap, actually, but that's largely because I don't really understand the participants. What I would say is I think a lot of the French jockeys, I think, would struggle to get a ride in the UK, to be honest with you. I mean, I think Gerard Mossay's terrible. I think Barcelona's nonsense. I think the fella that was Blogger's friend that's in a little difficulty currently, I think he's very, very good. I think the rest of them are pretty much of a muchness. But, I probably don't understand enough about it, but I would take John's view. I would agree with it about the presenting. I mean, I think, we do tend to sort of infantilize the way we cover this sport. I mean, Ed Chamberlain is technically a very good presenter. I'm going slightly off topic, but there is a whiff of the Butlins red coat about him, isn't there? You could imagine him sort of judging Miss Minehead 1987 with that kind of... He's got that kind of vibe about it, and John's right. It's a much more serious undertaking in places like France and the rest of the world. But the underlying sport, I don't understand enough about it to get too excited about it. And I think there's probably enough racing in the UK to be dealing with at the minute, rather than worrying about French stuff. But there we are.
Yeah. I mean, Pierre Charles Boudin, he's been going down the Jeffrey Epstein route. I mean, it's bloggers mate as well. Bloggers
not
mate.
Anymore. He doesn't seem to have too many selfies with him now, does he? With suit with arrows on or whatever. But there you go. We'll see.
It could have been, interesting times in France there. But yeah, I mean, French racing to me, I do enjoy watching it. To be honest, I mean, I like.
It's horrible, isn't it? Don't you find it boring? I mean, I don't know. I just find it really dull. But perhaps perhaps because I don't know the participants as well as you do. I mean, other than Andre Fabre and a couple of others, I really don't know much about trainers.
I mean, you're right about the standard jockeys out there. Yeah. I mean, there aren't very many good ones. But I mean, take today's race at Chantilly, pre Robert Papa. I mean, the strength in depth is so poor in France. I mean, it's outside the sort of top few trainers. Literally, I mean, I can't believe how bad a race that is for a Group 2. It's probably one of the worst Group 2s I've probably ever seen, ever.
Wow.
In my life. I mean, the one of Nick Bradley's in there. Sorry if you're listening to this after, but the one of Nick Bradley's in there, I think was putting at 40s. I think it's been backed into like 16s and 14s. I think it's about a single figure chance. I mean, but that's only like very ordinary form. It finished 4th at Pontefract recently. But that tells you how bad the race is. If I'm thinking that should be a lot shorter.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a real bad one. Kevin Ryan's got the. But I mean, I do enjoy watching it on At the Races. I think it's got quite a bit to offer.
Bradley's ass has to come from the back at you today.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, he's good, yeah, I agree, Rob. Yeah, keep watching the French. But I mean, the French know how to do it right. They've got a properly funded sport. There's owners going over there in the droves for the prize money. It literally. I mean, a friend of mine lives in York. Christian Stranger. He's got some interest out there with some horses because you finish 3rd or 4th in a race. You've paid for a month's training.
What's the admission fee cost? How does it compare, Lee, to the UK? For
the last time I was racing in France, I was so impressed because I went for Arc Day. It was a long time ago when Generous ran, and I was so impressed because it was about £5. It was
wow.
To get in, and in that £5 you got a really lovely colour race card. So like with the history of the Arc and and it was in English as well for English readers, and yeah, it was just like that was back then. And it just shows you how much they think about the punter. £5 to get in. There's none of this enclosure rubbish, apart from the private dining areas and the owners areas. There's no enclosure crap. That includes standing around the parade ring. That includes going wherever you want for £5. And yeah, amazing. Just amazing value. And they do it right. It's funded correctly. And fair play to them. The BHA obviously decide that our way is better for some
We
reason.
need to go over there for a working holiday to France, a few lunches in the Paris restaurants.
Oh,
for about
yes.
6 months. Fact finding.
In the Dordogne, yeah.
Fact finding mission. Côte d'Azur or somewhere, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right, we move on from Vive la France. Enough championing those French rubbish. The Racing League. Andy Richmond brings up the subject of crazy racing ideas, and he says about the Racing League. He says it's one of the racing's own goals, and we've got a question on the Racing League, which I'll save for after we've discussed the Racing League. I was amazed, John, to find out that the start of the Racing League is on the Thursday of the Goodwood, obviously festival, right? Where probably most of the jockeys that signed up in the Racing League teams won't be able to ride in it. What's the 50,000 a year CEO of the Racing League doing, starting it off on the Thursday, John?
Well, if you're going to pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys.
Yeah, and he works 1 day a week, though, to be fair.
I mean, it works fairly, don't really. I mean, it's they never fail to produce utter mediocrity. This organisation, it's so disappointing. I mean, the idea in itself is an absolute joke. But when they start scheduling things like that, it just shows it's up for the rubbish it is, doesn't it, really?
I mean, do punters ever get consulted in these matters? Because I don't know many punters that were in favour, say, of the Shergar Cup. I mean,
terrible that is.
I mean, maybe people that go on the day and pay the admission fee, they maybe enjoy a bit of razzmatazz, like the casual race goer. But I cannot think of any punter that would be in favour of something like that.
The other week, with no way of knowing who comes back because they don't do anything to monitor it.
No. Like market research, as in to know what your customers actually want.
Vouchers for your next visit or anything like that, so have a way of quantifying what impact it's having or anything. But again, that's typical of some of the scribs that approach racing and get these contracts to bring racing to a wider audience. They don't want any scrutiny or anybody looking at what they're actually bringing to the table, because for my money, most of the time they're bringing absolutely jack shit.
Bang on the money. Right, so a question related to the Racing League. We all think that the Racing League's absolutely nuts and a waste of time. But Steve Gravy Train, great Twitter name, I like that. Steve Gravy.
I like that.
He said the Racing League, he says he hears there'll be a 13th team added, the Bar Stewards team. Yeah. And he wants to know, start with you on this, John, 3 jocks and 3 trainers who would be on your team.
What we're doing, we're picking one each.
I think so, yeah.
Well, I think trainer-wise, although I'm sure he's relinquished his licence by now, I'd probably go for Joe Mullall. And at least we get plenty of gin down our necks before the horror unfolded. And I think for the jockey, I'd probably plump for Thick Dave, because then when we realised what stupid idea it was, we could piss off and have a game of golf.
Yeah.
So John thinking of gin and golf when picking his jock and trainer. Chris, who would your jockey and trainer be to add to our team?
I'm going to the dark side. My trainer is going to be Michael Wigham, and I'm going to have Tom Quealy as my jockey. There you go. Pick the bones out of that. Michael
Wigham and Tom Quealy.
Yeah. The dark side.
Yeah, that would be interesting on Betfair.
Nothing in the frame, boys. Not today.
Yeah. The old 10-minute stare at the Betfair graphs.
Well, exactly right. Yeah.
Just before the off, and everyone sat there thinking, "Can I? Can I back this? Shall I back this?
Yeah,
is it strong enough in the market to back?"
30 seconds before the off.
It's gone out 4 points. It's now 5 points.
Evens out to 200. Yeah, in a minute.
Yeah,
they're my two.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'd do it in the name of diversity. I'd probably get one of the Magnolia Cup riders in, maybe Gooks.
Goose in, yeah.
Just to show racing's diversity in their flagship summer promotions. I'd have Goose certainly as a jockey, and I'd probably just look for someone in South Africa, maybe a black racehorse trainer again to show racing's diversity, so that we're not all double-barreled surnames and what have you. And I think that's what I'd do, Steve. Yeah. So that's our three. John going for the golf and gin angle. I'm going for the diversity angle, and Chris is going for the Betfair graph. Yes or no angle, which kind of typifies racing up, I think, to a degree. So yeah, good answers. Right, so we move on to a sordid subject here. Panorama, if you've not already heard, is due to run a programme 8:30 on Monday evening regarding the welfare issues of treatment of racehorses that have finished their careers. Allegedly, I've not actually had this confirmed, but that's what's being talked about, and that's apparently what it is. And apparently, it's focusing on mainly. Well, according to what John Hines has tweeted, he's put. We've had Elliot Marn, that's been Elliot sat on the horse, for example, the dead horse, and now Panorama focusing mainly on Irish trainers' owners, it seems. So obviously I've not looked to see if that's the case, but that's what John says, and he says all bringing negative to racing worldwide. So is it a deeper Irish issue or an Irish regulatory issue or coincidence? We've had cruelty cases over here too. I can remember Mick Quinn, I think, having been banned for cruelty.
Yeah, he's eating all their food though, wasn't he? That was it.
Yeah, old Mick. John, I mean, what can we be expecting tomorrow? Do you think, and what if anything can racing do to improve this if there are issues that's going to be highlighted tomorrow night?
Well, I'm sure that since the announcement was made that Panorama were going to do an expose on malpractice, shall we call it, in racing, powers that be have spent the time shitting themselves, not because of what's going to come to light, but because of the fact that they've probably done nothing about malpractices in racing since most of them got the jobs. They're probably going to lead with that BFJ photo, aren't they? And with him sat on the horse. Now, to make things clear, for a start, that in itself, and people won't like this, is not an incident of cruelty.
No.
Because that horse is dead. And that horse doesn't know that BFJ...
It's crass, but it's not cruelty.
It's crass, it's demeaning, it's repellent.
Yes.
From the chain. But it's not cruelty.
No.
It's, it's rather like, if you're stupid, you don't know you're stupid. If you're dead,
I don't know what you're on about.
But that's not to say there isn't a problem in racing with injuries being glossed over, painkillers being administered to get work into horses at risk of them breaking down further, whatever, There's not enough people brought to book, in my opinion, for me to be convinced that the powers that be are addressing the problem. Because there's got to be a problem. There's too many horses in training, and there's too many trainers making a living when you think, how the hell is he still functioning?
Yeah.
His last winner was Spring Double in 1971, and it just begs too many questions. And as I say, the people that should be getting the microscope put on them really are the people that administer the sport, not those that are getting away with whatever Panorama perceives them to be getting away with.
Yeah, as an owner myself, I know that when you pass,
we don't get any info from you, Lee. You can say you're an owner, but I keep checking my text messages, mate, when your man has a runner, and there's nothing there. What's going on?
There's nothing to tell at the moment.
We need help.
I'm like Julian Wilson anyway.
Keep
you
it
know,
up. Keep
I'm
it blocked
sorry,
on
but
Twitter
that's it.
yourself.
Yeah, I'm a blocker.
Yeah, not a blogger, but a blocker. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as an owner, when you sort of sell a horse through the sales ring, obviously you don't know where that's going to end up. Could end up anywhere. If you retire a horse, there is no protocol at the moment that makes me fill in a form to tell the BHA, for example, where this horse is and what it's doing. It's literally down to my responsibility to find a home or a new. A lot of racehorses obviously go into dressage and show jumping and and things like that and have a great life as well. I mean, there's some if you go on Brian Ellison Racing's Twitter, you'll see old Moyen Corniche, the EBO winner, what he's doing now, and it's all grand. And I think that's the owner's responsibility. I would like to see more responsibility placed on owners in that respect. That it is a duty of care, as in, so like if they're not worth anything through the sales ring, i.e. you can't sell them, you've got to basically, it's your duty, you can't, to find them a new occupation. So I would like to see more done on that subject as a responsible owner. So
what's your view on them that go to Merton, like?
Sorry, say that again, John. I missed that.
What's your view on those that end up at Merton sale?
What's Merton sale?
Meat value, basically.
Meat trucks. Yeah, I don't think I can. I don't think I could do that with any of mine. Unless, I mean, the thing is, it's difficult with horses because a lot of them be carrying sort of injuries that makes them relatively, so to speak, I don't want to sound horrid, but useless to anybody really. Or they might have got some terrible sort of yard habits. They might be nasty. They might bite. They're not suitable to be around children because they're thoroughbreds at the end of the day. So not all horses are suitable to find alternate careers, if you like.
This is the thing. What I was going to say was I would sooner say him go for meat and be dealt with humanely than just turned away and left to rot. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean that's. I think as long as everyone's doing the morally the right thing, I think that's the way forward. But at the moment, there's definitely no protocol or checks from, say, the BHA to me asking me what's happened about my past racehorses, or well, you didn't put this through sales ring, where is it? I've never been asked. So it's down to each owner just to be morally good, if you like. So yeah, and fortunately in racing, I'm pretty certain that it'll be in the high 90s in terms of owners that are responsible like that and will make sure the horse is rehomed and rehoused and carries on enjoying its life doing something else. But as I said, we've got to deal with this tomorrow night. It's going to be unsavoury. It's going to draw the Twitter nutters out. Usually I don't respond to Twitter nutters because they're impossible to speak to. But on this occasion, I probably might get dragged in, especially if I'm on the gin. I've got some lovely Siderit gin, Spanish gin to try. Ooh. If you've not tried it before. It's very rare. Google it, Siderit, Siderit. Bar Stewards Inquiry, brought to you by Siderit Gin.
You should tag them in, get some sponsorship, give them free advertising.
Yeah, so I might get dragged into responding, but as I said, we know the sport. The sport has certain PR issues, and this is going to be one of them. But I know the sport probably better than most on-owning horses. I know how well they're treated, and I've no concerns hardly at all in the game about the treatment of racehorses in the United Kingdom. That's how I'd stand. John seems to think that Ireland might have its own set of problems, but John, I actually think that doping's more a big problem in Ireland, and I just, as I said, I can't speak because I don't live in Ireland. I don't understand the Irish culture as much as what a lot of people that are in Irish yards do. But I know over here, I don't think the drug culture is as prevalent as it is in Ireland. But there we go. Right, we're going to finish the show off, chaps, with a cracking one from John Swarfiga, Siren Master Nolan. He's good on Twitter. You should, anyone that doesn't follow the Bastards on Twitter, just follow us and just follow John as well, because he's quite funny. And he says, right, let's have a top 10 things that boils your piss about racing. And there's a thread going on the Bastards, so you can join in if you want to type anything that boils your piss about racing. So what I'd like now is to get you two's thoughts on what boils your piss about racing the most. Chris, I'll start with you.
Well, I have many, but the one that really boils my piss is whenever Gary Moore is mentioned, I have to say what a hard-working family he has, as if somehow nobody else works hard. And frankly, if I was going to inherit sort of 200 acres of Sussex downland, I think I'd be fucking working hard all day and all night. So it's the hard-working Gary Moore family. Can't stand that expression.
So that boils Chris's piss. I like that one. John, what would be like? I bet you've an absolute scroll full. But I mean, what would be a sort of a couple of your piss boilers?
Well, firstly, the price of sausage rolls on cars.
The big issues
it's an absolute criminal. I mean, it's disgusting. That you can pay £2.50 for a sausage roll that's no bigger than your middle finger.
You might have fat fingers though, mate. Well,
yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
I mean, secondly, I think I would have to go with the ineptitude of those in charge of the sport, because you can guarantee they aren't lunching on sausage rolls. They're lunching at our expense.
Absolutely fantastically put.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastically put. I mean, for me, it is the BHA. It starts at the top and it stems all the way down. And I think what I complain about the most are two things. It can be, they set these daft race times, so it'll be like 4:23, 4:28, whatever, and then. So what a track starts to do is they've got a 25 runner handicap, and then they start to load. The off time's 4:23, and they start loading at 4:23. Yeah. Well, how does that work then? Because by the time you get them in, get them off finished, literally you're lucky if the 4:28 isn't ready to. It's mental. The planning on that front's terrible. And also, with it being an entertainment sport, I'm sick of when horses get loose. There's like arm wavers and chucking, all that rubbish, like until it decides to do 6 laps. Why on earth can we not employ outriders? It's an absolute disgrace. It would provide employment for local people to the track. Horses then also, we've just talked about horses in a new job and well, if being outriders, like as I said,
I don't get the hard-working Haley Moore. She's good at catching.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, unless you're Haley Moore that was tremendous. That Haley Moore, the hard-working Haley Moore.
Yeah.
So I mean, simple things that make everyone's day more enjoyable and more safer. An outrider would stop a horse from crashing through rails or doing damage or running into a crowd or whatever. The inevitability, if you haven't got outriders, is eventually when a nutcase horse gets loose, like has happened in the past, it gets loose. Sometimes it gets in the crowd, and then and then until it's happened and somebody gets a kick from one or gets mowed down by one and gets seriously injured or even killed, this won't be discussed. Again, at the top table, there's not enough reason for him to go out to lunch for this. So for me, that's what boils my piss. Outriders would make the sport safer and get races off on time, etc., 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 etc. For a very, very small expense. What we're looking at for an outrider for the day, £500. £500 and travelling, they'd be queuing up to do it for that. So that's what I would do. Catherine Fry's emailed in, late one from Catherine Fry. She just said about Magners, apparently with the Cheltenham Festival, Magners are refusing to pay the sponsorship, citing racing as the blame for COVID, and it's been bad publicity for them.
Not a delicious drink, people getting pissed up, smashing 7 bells out of each other. The cider people, yes.
Yeah. So Cheltenham are having to sue them, John.
Good God. I mean, I'm very surprised at this. You know, I mean, I thought most of the breweries would still be on the side, especially at a place like Cheltenham.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, you know, I mean, they should be able to sell a raging torrent of their piss-flavoured cider, shouldn't they?
Yeah. Fizzy apple juice, isn't it?
Dear God.
Piss flavour. I like that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just wonder if it's like posturing from Magners, i.e., let maybe even cover Cheltenham's legal fees, but the publicity they get from it is quite enormous. And maybe then Magners will end up settling before it actually gets to court, pay Cheltenham's legal fees, and it's probably a cheaper way of getting on the BBC News quite often.
Well, new sponsor, maybe the Greg Sausage Roll Gold Cup. How about that? I think that'd be. I love a bit of Greg. So
John
Sausage Rolls down a mile forest.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, this is what racing would do if racing let a Greg's open on tracks.
I like that.
You
like that every week.
But it won't be Greg's prices. No. Sadly, John's right. It's terrible. Catering prices on track, terrible. Right, that we're going to end it there. We've had a fun show. We've covered some good topics there, chaps. I hope you've enjoyed it. Me and John are back on our lonesome, I believe, next Friday to cover off Saturday's racing, and then on Sunday we've got a sermon special where we managed to cram 4. Into John's sweaty basement, and we've got Andy Richmond, Bickley 14. We've got Catherine Fry, John himself, and myself to go through Goodwood's anti-post. We're looking at all the Goodwood action for the festival. That'll be next Sunday. Time to be announced. So hope you enjoyed it. That's all from us. We'll be back on Friday. Bye for now.